Welcome to Talk to Me Nice, Communication Gone Wild, where we tackle all the ways words can build bridges or burn them down.
We're your hosts, here to dive into the quirks, challenges, and straight up chaos of modern communication in this digital first world.
From hilarious text fails to awkward Zoom moments, we'll explore how we connect, misconnect, and everything in between.
With expert insights, real-life stories, and a little bit of humor, we're here to help you navigate the messy, fascinating world of communication.
Because let's be honest, talking to each other shouldn't be this hard, but it is. Hi everyone, welcome to Talk to Me Nice, Communication Gone Wild. We are here to talk about how miscommunication has become increasingly common in our digital first world, affecting personal and professional and social interactions. We are here to create a fun, interactive podcast that highlights the quirks, the challenges, and the lessons of communication using humor and expert insights to explore how we can better navigate today's complex communication landscape. I'm one of your hosts, Ashley. I am my last year of my degree in mass communications, and my goal is to be in sports journalism. And I'm going to kick it off to Kishon.
How you doing? It's nice to meet everybody. My name is like my co-host Ashley said, Kishon. I'm also in school for communications and media. I'm currently in my last semester. Which will result in me receiving a bachelor's degree. And I look forward to speaking with everybody and talking to everybody about the evolution of communications in the digital era that we currently live in today. And I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on to my co-host Timothy.
Hey, my name is Timothy. You guys can call me Tim. I am also I guess it would be considered a senior in college at Florida State Community College at Jacksonville. I am in my last semester, much like Kishon. I plan to graduate in May with my bachelor's in communications and media. I work at a large healthcare provider, a company that owns a lot of hospitals. I'm also an intern with the city of Jacksonville, Office of Special Events. And once I graduate, I'm not entirely sure what I want to do. Definitely want to move something into the communications realm, whether it be something with public relations or even something with the event planning, much like my intern office does. And I'm just happy to be here, and I'm going to pass it off now to Tameka.
Good day. I'm Tameka. I am in my last semester of my Bachelor's of Science degree, major in communications and media at Florida State College at Jacksonville. I'm very excited to graduate in May. I will be taking a gap year working on my application to get into law school. This is very much exciting for me. As we delve into our podcast, my coverage will be the history of all topics.
I'm so excited that you guys can meet us all, and now we're about to dive on in. Today's topic is called Can You Hear Me Now? We will be exploring how technology has changed communication from text to Zoom. Tim, can you kick us off?
Yeah. So as far as I can tell, I think I'm a little older than everybody in the group. We're not really giving like the date this was recorded, but I did just turn 49 yesterday. So my perspective, yeah, right.
Happy belated birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy belated
So my
birthday.
perspective, yeah, thank you. So my perspective reaches back a good way. I mean, I remember being a kid, on the handheld phone with the cord, and then I was around for the advent of the cordless phone, and then of course later on there was the beeper. And then that followed with the cell phone. And I think I got my first cell phone in like 1997. Like I was the first person in my group to have one. It was really exciting. But yeah, I mean, it's changed. I mean, all of these, and then of course from the cell phone, eventually turned into the smartphone. And then we had, of course, the internet comes in with the advent of email and everything else. And I think all of these changes or all of these advances in technology have definitely changed the way we communicate. I mean, I can remember being young, having some of those first jobs, and, your manager would have to tell you manually or put it on a calendar in the break room as far as when a meeting was, and everybody had to meet face to face, and then eventually that evolved into, text messaging. Or even with the beeper, I mean, there was some level of being able to say like, hey, obviously, can you give me a call back? And then there eventually was text messaging. Kind of started with the beepers before the cell phones, but of course that evolved into the cell phone and into the smartphone, where we had, we basically walk around with computers in our pockets, and we can receive emails and text messages and keep things on a calendar. And then of course, I can even go back even further. I remember being a senior in high school in 1993, 94, and hearing these commercials about like, here comes the information superhighway, and we didn't know what that was. We're like, what in the world is that? And it turned out that was the internet, and how that evolved over the years too. And again, a lot of that same evolution. Now we had communication at our fingertips via email or via text message or, wherever. And now that's even evolved further into, like even what we're meeting on right now, this thing called the big blue button, is very similar to the Zooms and the WebEx and the Microsoft Teams, and I know COVID was a big, huge, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Like, that was the thing that really set a lot of the online meeting stuff in motion, as far as it just being used universally and a lot more people going to remote work as opposed to being in office. But for me, like, I've been as far as some of the challenges that have come with that. Now, I've been work from home. I was working from home a long time before the pandemic or anything. So, I've been doing this for a long time. And even when I was still in office, for a little while, I had people that were in office and I had people that were in another city, and some of them were work from home and all that. So it's like I had a good mix. And when I was a team lead at this hospital company that I work for, pretty much had, at one point in time, like half in office, half out of office. And now even these days, like everybody that I work with personally is remote. And we're all in different cities. Some of, a few are here, but I mean, I have people like all over the Southeast. I think even as far as Colorado. And like I say, with all of these advances comes challenges. As far as, we all know how to act when we're face to face, or at least we should. But once you get into the, texting and all that, there's a whole thing, like they refer to it as netiquette, that you have to be aware of, when you're communicating, with other people via the internet or via smartphones or whatever, to make sure, that you're not sending the wrong message or sending something that can be taken out of context, and like, I know for me, training, I have to do a lot of training, and it's extremely difficult because when you're training somebody in person, like, if you're at work and you're on your computer or whatever you do, if there's somebody that's shadowing you, like that's in person, there's a lot to be said for the ability to see like what that person's doing. Meaning, like, if I'm trying to show you how to do something in Excel, it's not only just showing you how the actual spreadsheet works or the formula or whatever I'm using, but also seeing what my hands are doing, like with the keyboard, with the mouse and all that. And, with online meetings and everything moving to online, you lose a lot of that. So, in addition to trying to train somebody on, how to do things, I also have to kind of explain to them like what I'm doing with my hands, because they can't see me, and then also, without having the person right there next to you, you can't always gauge their I guess, engage their engagement. You can't always measure that. You can't see what they're doing. You can't see if they're like falling asleep on you, if they're even paying attention, or if they're, looking at their phone or whatever, which I know is something, something else we can cover here. But beyond that, I mean, there's the training aspect of it. But even though I'm not a lead anymore, I still run our weekly huddles, on our team. And, the big difficulty there is I build a PowerPoint every week for our meetings, and we go over like, what we completed the week before. I try to make it fun with like fun facts and like what day it is, like when it's like waffle day or French toast day or something like that. Try to make it fun, try to add trivia, try to add a little comedy. So it's not just dry work related, like here's what we did, here's the metrics, here's this. You try to make it fun. And I think, again, when I used to do this stuff in person, it's really easy to gauge. Jokes go over real well, or at least if they went over well or if they fall flat. And you have a lot of just direct engagement with everybody. And with everything now being online and being remote, it's like you lose a lot of that, and I'm going through trying to make things fun or whatever and interactive. And when it's online, half the people aren't paying any attention, and then even if some people, like you throw a little joke out there, if everybody's muted, you don't know if they're laughing or if they're whatever. It's like a lot of, it's a lot of dead air, or or whatever, and it's really hard to keep people engaged these days with everything being online. And then of course, then you have what you run into, like on those huddles, we're all on video on that. So sometimes when we actually get to some of the work pieces, some of the things drag out, or maybe that person I don't like too much on the team starts talking about a process or whatever, and I'm just sitting there like doing my best to remember, like, everybody on here can see me. I can't roll my eyes, I can't sigh, I can't, I can't flip off the camera, whatever I want to do. And it makes things very, very difficult, and you have to be very, very careful with that, because things, like say, things can be taken out of context, or somebody can see you rolling your eyes or showing disinterest or whatever, and the message doesn't get conveyed the way that you would like, and then there could be HR issues, and all that kind of fun stuff. So one funny story I'll share before I pass it over. This is funny to me. It wasn't funny at the time, but it's funny now. Like, so my team that I'm on, we used to have a Tampa team and an Orange Park team, and then they merged us all under one team. Well, I was still in office at the time, but again, this is when what I was sharing earlier about having some people that were in the office and some people that were home, and even some people just in the, even if they were in office, it was a different office. So I had to do an online training, and I had all these people, and I'm sharing my screen. So, nobody can see my face or anybody else's face, but they see my screen. Well, I think what some people don't realize, and I know I make it a point to these days to like tell people, people that I chat with a lot, like, hey, I'm about to be on a training. Maybe don't send me any chats for a few minutes, because, those things, like if you're sharing your screen and you're not careful and you don't have the chat, like maybe on a, your other, chat on like a different screen or whatever, you can hold on. You can run into problems like I had. So I'm training everybody. And, the people in Tampa, they were asking a lot of questions because it was kind of changing what they do. And it's understandable. But one of my friends, she worked for me, but she was also a friend of mine. She sends me a text and says, "Oh my God, I can't believe how effing stupid all these Tampa people are." And as I'm doing
Wow.
this training and sharing my screen, a little box shows up in the bottom corner. And I mean, she didn't even edit the F word. She just let it
Dang.
all hang out. And it just shows up on there. And I'm sitting there trying to scramble. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, but like in my head, because I can't say that, because I'm just trying to get it to disappear before anybody knows. And like while I was still trying to teach the class or whatever, I text her on my phone and I was like, don't you ever do that to me again. She's like, oh my God,
Oh
oh my
my
God, oh my
God.
God. I didn't know it would show up like that. I'm like, don't you ever do that to me again. I'm like, you have my phone number if you need to say something like that. I'm like, but yeah, so it's, again, the communication and the development and the evolution or whatever of the communication process has definitely, it's made some things a lot easier, and definitely made, help with remote work and all that, but it also comes with its challenges, and it's like its own separate form of etiquette, if that makes sense.
I absolutely love this, Tim, because it definitely derives and like puts like sends the ball back to me, because we got a lot of problems going on
Mhm.
with this. I just, for me, I'm thinking about this. Just coming from corporate America myself originally, before starting the business, I'm thinking about, when sharing your screen, right?
Yeah.
And doing these Zoom calls, and you're like, you need to mute your IM, because if those IM pop up in the middle of you sharing your screen and you're
Hmm.
talking about your boss, it is the most embarrassing moment,
That was the
that you can
first thing that
even
came to
think
my
of.
mind. Embarrassing. Like, dang, how do you take that back?
Like,
Like that
you
happened.
can't. Yeah, it's immediately in your face.
Yeah, and I got lucky that nobody. Well, I don't know if they saw it, but nobody said anything. I mean, that's been years, so But yeah, I'm very careful about that now, and just making sure, like when I share when I do those weekly huddles, I make sure I have share one screen and everything's on the other screen. Like I'm, just don't want that to happen again.
Oh my goodness. So let's look at some problems and some solutions. Tim, you brought up so much good stuff, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like just from how things first started. Like you took us back to the beeper. I'm old enough to remember the beeper. I'm old enough to remember, the rotary phones and all those things. And I thought about it recently. How I was talking about this and how we used to walk for me and my brother used to walk for miles back and forth to school, and they was your parents hoped and wished when they got home that you were there. It was
Yeah.
nobody to call and text on you or have that anxiety of like, are they home yet? Are they, so I would say like having the accessibility of something on your hip 24/7 has caused like I don't want to call it an anxiety, but it has caused a something to where it's just people want other people at their fingertips every minute, every second of the day.
Mhm.
Because it's like, well, I know you have a cell phone, so why you're not answering it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas before, as you said, you worked at a company, and the way that you knew that you were having a meeting, you would go into the break room and then say, hey, we're meeting at 3 o'clock today, to discuss X, Y, and Z. When you
Mhm.
think about that, I remember my parents leaving notes on the fridge, growing up. So it's just crazy to see how much technology has vast over, the way we communicate has vast
Yeah.
over time. But it also it shows you how you said something, and I thought this was really good. You call it instead of like etiquette, you call it netiquette. And
Yeah.
I think that is such a clever term
Mhm.
because I think that that's something that we lack in the community, in the first age of like communication, first world of communication. I feel like that's something that we do lack. We do lack, netiquette. We do lack the understanding of like how this thing of technology can backlash on us. And I think about your explanation on the girl, that you work with, your friend, sending you this message. We know that IMs pop up on our screen, but in her mind, because like we sometimes can uh different differentiate things differently, right? Because it's easy, when you're on a Zoom call or anything like that, it's easy to send your friend a message on IM or something that's
Mhm.
going to like pop up on a message box. But I think that we forget that it's when we're sharing a screen that like, hey, this is going to pop up to everyone that's watching, right? Before you could sit next to someone, send them a message while you're in a team meeting, you could giggle and cackle about it. But now it's like I send you a message, and I'm sharing my screen, which is something that we once couldn't do. It's like everybody gets to see it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the etiquette that you have to put in place now is just like, hey, we don't send those type of IMs through our
Mhm.
work computer. We send it to our personal cell phones, right?
Yeah.
We think about the etiquette of, also, sharing your screen and doing a meeting. And then I put down like, you can't read the room. You like you said, like I remember working and not being able to read the room. So that's something that's like a problem that we run into, right?
Yeah.
We can't read the room. We can't tell if, hey, do you like what I'm saying? Do you guys agree? You can't read the room as if we were in person. So I do feel like Zoom somewhat took that away unless you're forced to be on camera. And we know
Yeah.
like a lot of places that we might work at, they don't want to be on camera. Definitely if you're at home, a lot of people are still laying in bed. You don't want to be on camera, so you can't read the room.
Yeah.
You don't know if, and it's funny because you said, well, you never heard no one say nothing about, the IM that popped up. And I'm thinking to myself to the part you said, a lot of times people are not even paying attention because
Mhm.
it's almost like when you're on Zoom, it's almost, I think of it like an audio book. It's just someone's talking and then you're
Yeah.
just forced, you can do other stuff, but you're trying to work and do other stuff at the same time. So I
Yeah.
do think that Zoom has taken away from like, even though you said that you create games or create little fun interactive things to start the meeting off, I do feel like it took away personalship, like us being personal with one another, because you can't read the room. You don't know that someone is rolling their eyes while you're talking, like, oh my god, will you stop? um but I also think that it has made accessibility at the forefront of your fingertips So I want to put down some takeaways for our listeners to take away with these problems that you run into. Definitely, Tim gave us number one. Make sure when you're on a Zoom call, IMs are closed down. You
Definitely.
don't want
Mhm.
no personal conversations to pop up on the screen. You don't want none of those things to happen. You don't want any conversations that even might be private amongst, seniority about things that's going on within the business or within the company or within, just within your group of people, even if it's something that's outside of, a corporate job. You don't want everybody to know about that. So definitely close those IMs down. Tim mentioned meetings. I remember when meetings, like he said that, you would go, to your back room and they say, hey, we're having a meeting, and they'll leave a note, like we're having a meeting at this time. And I think that in this digital first world, we can easily get those messages, and it's just like a calendar invite. Like you're in the middle of eating lunch and it's like, at your desk, and it's like a calendar invite. Somebody wants to talk to you in 2 minutes. I think that we need to, even though people feel that they should be so accessible to us with these computers and things of that nature, I think that we should push back sometimes to give
Yeah.
ourselves time to prepare. So number two would be letting people be okay with saying, "Hey, Tim, I see that you put me something on my calendar in 5 minutes. I do need a few minutes to prepare. Can we push this back another 30 or 45 minutes?" Because I think that we have become like in a world where it's just like people want you at their fingertips every second of the day. It can create an anxiety for you to be like, oh my goodness, what you want to talk to me? Like, you want to get your mind right. So I think number two takeaway is definitely, since we have evolved from, hey guys, we'll have a meeting on this day, on a board in the back room, to, hey, I can put something on your calendar and I want to talk to you in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Definitely be okay with, giving people pushback and saying like, hey, I see you want to talk to me, in 5 minutes or in 2 minutes. Is it okay that I push this back, uh, a couple of minutes? Reading the room. I do love that Tim said that, for him in communication, he does something where he, do these icebreakers in the beginning of a meeting. Um, because things are not as personable as they are before. I think that when doing Zoom calls and meeting, an icebreaker is needed. Something fun, something where you're talking about like, hey, did you know it's illegal to eat chicken with a fork in Georgia? That's another fun fact for you guys today. But
Did not know
just put,
that.
yeah, it's a fun fact. It's illegal to eat chicken with a fork in Georgia. So I think that, those are good takeaways. It's just like, because you can't read a room in our digital first world, is definitely putting the icebreakers, make people laugh, just say, hey everyone, get off mute. Let's do some icebreakers, scream them out, but yeah, those are some of my three takeaways and three solutions to our problems today. And now I'll hand it over to Kishon.
All right. So what I researched regarding the digital age of communications with Zoom and texting was basically it kind of like, for me, I kind of feel like with the digital age that we live in now, like it is a lot of pros and it is a lot of cons to texting and like Zoom calls or Microsoft Teams and stuff like that. So I guess like the main thing to consider is depending on what type of circumstance and situation you in, depends on whether or not you should be using which device or technique, basically. So like I feel like, for example, like when it comes to like meetings and stuff like that, of course, like I would probably suggest like doing a Zoom call or Microsoft Teams, like anything where like you can have an extended long conversation, like, and people are easily able to like chime in and stuff like that. But when it comes to like texting and stuff, like, I honestly don't feel like you need to schedule a Zoom call just to like ask somebody a simple question or anything like that. So I just feel
I like
like
that.
I feel like now it's just gotten to a point where it's technology has evolved so much that it's made a lot of things more convenient, and with it being more convenient, it just, like I said again, it just depends on like the circumstances, and a lot of things that I think also take into place on, or as to why it's become so convenient, is probably like three different things, which is kind of like who you're communicating with, what the message you're trying to convey is, and what setting you're in. So like, like, of course, like I said again, like if it's about business and you're talking with coworkers and stuff like that, is there's a more likely chance that you'll be doing more Zoom calls than text messaging. But if you're talking to like a friend or a family member, then there's a high possibility that you're going to be like texting 24/7 with each other. Like, I can say from personal experience, and like my personal preference is texting, honestly, because like
With
I
you
feel
there.
like a lot of, how you say, you too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like it's just like a lot of us have a lot going on now. So, so it's like so much easier and so much more convenient just to like pull out your phone, type for 2 seconds, if that, what I'm saying, what it is that you need to tell somebody, and then go on about your day, So like that's pretty much like what it is. And then again, like it also depends on like what you're trying to tell somebody, like I said, like again, like it could be something simple, like I say, if you're having a conversation with somebody, or you need to have a conversation with somebody, then I would probably suggest having like a video chat, or something like that. But if your boss is calling to check up, well, if your boss is checking up on you to see like why you're running late for work, because maybe you forgot to call them in advance or let them know that you're late for work, then it doesn't really require a group call. It just requires a simple, hey, you're running late. Is everything okay? Boom. Yeah, everything's fine. I just had a little car trouble. And then it's that simple. I'll be in work in like 5 to 15 minutes. So I feel like with like I said again, like I just feel like now with the digital era and the digital age that we're in now, it's just made everything just more convenient. And I feel like we were forced to make it that way as well because of everything that happened with COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Like because of COVID-19, we didn't have a choice but to use nothing but digital technology. Like we couldn't be in the same room with everybody, so we couldn't do things that were face to face. We had to use our mobile phones, we had to use our laptops, we had to do virtual calls and everything like that. So again, I feel like there are a lot of pros and there are a lot of cons to the way that the digital era has evolved, but I honestly feel like the pros outweigh the cons. Even if it's not by a lot, it is by a handful. I do feel like that. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I will say, just commenting on something that Kishon said as far as preferring texting. Yeah, I'm that jerk that like you can call, like if my wife, I do this to my wife, even my kid, like you call and I'm like, oh man, I don't want to answer this phone. And then I'll immediately text you like 2 minutes later, hey, what'd you need? Like, yeah, and it's funny to think about that because going back to the history or, my personal experience, it's like, I remember, being on the phone as a kid, with the corded phone and the cordless phones and just, talking to, most of the time a girl. I could be on the phone with her for 2 hours, and it doesn't faze me at all until my mom finally would get on and say, hey, you need to get off the phone or whatever. And, and now it's like my phone ring, I use it for social media and computer type stuff. And like when it rings, it's like I almost want to throw it in the ditch. I'm like, hey, I don't know what's it doing?
Yes.
Like what's that?
yeah,
Yes.
I prefer not to be on it at this point, to be
Oh,
honest.
Yeah,
Like,
or
yeah,
or the simple fact that it's not even just that. We some depending on what where you walked into technology in your life. It's some people in your life, all they do is FaceTime. So you like, I'm laying in bed, like,
yeah,
yeah,
and they're immediately like, it's like, it's not a regular call anymore. Now it's
mhm,
like, I want to call you and I want to see your face. you know?
Yeah.
So that's like a big change because it's like you have Zoom now on the go. Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
you have Zoom on the go, like everywhere you go. And I think that COVID-19, Zoom made a lot of money, that year.
Oh,
But but I do think that with because of Zoom and how everybody has to be on camera for work and school, whatever it may have been, I think that it pushed the FaceTime and calls a lot more. Like
Yeah.
some things that was like strange or weird for a lot of people. It was just like, why you didn't answer my FaceTime? Or, I know I was that person at one point where it's just like, I'm like, when people FaceTime me, I will like let it go and then I will call them back regular.
Mhm.
Um, but then I became that person that calling you regular was strange. I was just like, if I was going to call you, I was going to call you on FaceTime. That was normal. It became
Yeah.
normal for me. Until you get someone in your life who is like not normal for them. They like, why are you FaceTiming?
Exactly.
Like that's weird. Like,
Why
why are
didn't
you
you just
FaceTiming
why
me?
didn't you just text me? Why didn't you just like call me? Why are you
Yes,
FaceTiming me? It's like
yes.
what? No, this is what I do. This is normal for me. Like what do you mean? Like
And then
mhm.
it'll be Kishon, like you're saying, not using your netiquette.
Mhm.
And you just want to ask, do you like green and yellow, but you got to FaceTime me to do that. You could have just texted me
Yeah, it's like, but again, like y'all said, it's like it just depends on like who the person is. You know what I mean? Like again, like y'all said, it's like now I like FaceTime. I like seeing your face. You know what I'm saying? I like talking to people on the phone. It's like I do too, but I guess I just don't do it as much as you. So I'm sorry. I
that.
apologize. Let me hop on the bandwagon, and start FaceTiming more since this is what type of time we're on. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely agree with everybody. Yes. And yeah, so like I said, that's what I found in my research. And with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on to Tameka.
That was relatable for sure. Because I'm the type of person that I like text. Like, please don't call, don't FaceTime me, send an email, send a text. Um, but what I looked up when it comes to the history of the evolution of communication, it really started just face to face, as Ashley had mentioned before. This was before the 1800s. And as um, Tim had mentioned, there was texting. But way a little bit before that, between 1830s to 1840s, there was a telegraph. Then the telephone was created in 1876. Radio and television didn't come around till the 1900s. The internet and email was 1970s to the 1990s. Texting came into 1990s to 2000s. Social
That's
media
crazy.
video calls didn't develop until the 2000s to present. And as we are in 2025, there's artificial intelligence and whatever they're going to think of next. One movie that I really enjoyed watching recently is The Six Triple Eight, and they depict how communication via letters showed
Yes.
morality for the army men and their families, or even the army women. So it's important to have communication and just have an understanding of what's really going on, whether it's in interpersonal or professional.
Yes. Thank you guys for joining our podcast, Communication Going Wild. We're just touching the bottom of the iceberg, and we can't wait to bring you guys on board for more. Talk to you soon. Bye.
See ya.